Welcome back to the Quarterly Call. All content is for informational purposes and is not investment advice. Please consult with an investment professional. Okay, so today we're jumping into a really fascinating area, looking closely at one of the big names in surgical tech. We're focusing on their Q3 2025 results, but honestly, it feels like more than just numbers this time.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like we're watching a major strategic shift happening in real time. The numbers are solid, obviously, but the story behind them is this move from just selling equipment to really managing a whole global fleet.
Right, and managing older stuff too, not just pushing the new platform.
Precisely. And it's all tied to how fast this new Da Vinci 5 system is getting picked up and
Right.
how they're using the older systems that come back as trade-ins.
So the big headline, the number that caught my eye first, was that procedure growth. 20% worldwide in Q3. That's pretty strong.
It's very strong. And it's actually an acceleration from the first half of the year. It's really coming from, two places. The core Da Vinci business doing really well, especially in the US, and then these newer platforms, Ion and SP, just exploding.
Okay, so that's what we want to unpack for you listening today. We need to figure out, one, how is this DV5 system driving things? Not just sales, but how much the systems are actually being used.
And two, are these new technologies, like the force feedback everyone's talking about, actually proving valuable in a way surgeons are responding to? Is it making a difference clinically?
And third, this whole strategy around trade-ins and refurbishing the older Xi systems. How is that opening up new markets? Places maybe that couldn't afford the top-tier system before, like surgery centers or overseas.
Yeah, that fleet management piece is, I think, maybe the most interesting strategic angle here. It could completely change how they grow globally and domestically. Hashtag, II, Q3 2025 performance and procedure growth dynamics.
All right, let's dig into the Q3 numbers first. Financially, you called it an excellent quarter. Revenue was up 23% to about $2.5 billion.
Yep. $2.51 billion. And what's really telling is the pro forma earnings growth that was 30%, faster than revenue.
Okay, so that gap, 23% revenue, 30% earnings, that points to good efficiency, right? Good leverage.
Exactly. It means each extra dollar of revenue they're bringing in from procedures is contributing more to the bottom line. You see that kind of leverage in a mature, high-volume business model like this. They're getting more efficient as they scale.
And the business model itself seems incredibly resilient looking at where the money comes from.
Absolutely. The foundation is that recurring revenue, the instruments, accessories, service contracts. That was 85% of total revenue this quarter.
85%.
Yeah, it's huge. When you have that massive installed base of systems globally, that 85% gives you incredible predictability. And, strategically, it makes it really hard for competitors. Once a hospital has a system, switching is a major hassle retraining, changing workflows, supply chains.
It creates that sticky customer base we talk about.
Very sticky. That 85% recurring revenue stream really locks them in.
Okay, drilling down into the procedures themselves. Total worldwide growth, 20%, like we said. That was up from 18% in the first half. The core Da Vinci procedures were up 19%.
Yeah.
But it gets interesting when you split it geographically.
Right. The U.S. story is all about acceleration. Domestic Da Vinci growth was 13% in Q1, then 14% in Q2, and it hit 16% here in Q3.
So picking up speed through the year, what's driving that?
It seems pretty broad-based. Management mentioned strong growth in some of the less complex, higher volume general surgery areas. Think gallbladder removals, appendectomies. They did mention some anecdotes about patients maybe pulling procedures forward in Q3 because of insurance worries down the line. But they emphasized the main driver is just wider acceptance and better use of the systems already out there.
Okay, and outside the U.S., OUS growth was even higher, right? 24%.
Yeah, 24% OUS, which is phenomenal. They did add a little note, though maybe 1 percentage point of that was due to holiday timing, particularly in Asia, where things bunched up a bit differently this year.
So call it 23% underlying growth internationally. Still huge.
Still incredibly strong. And it seems to be driven by this growing acceptance of using the robots for multiple types of surgeries in places like India, Korea, Taiwan, and even their distributor markets.
And then the real headline grabbers, the specialized platforms.
Oh, yeah. Ion, the system for lung diagnosis, those procedures grew 52%. That's almost 38,000 procedures just in the quarter.
52%. Wow.
But even that was topped by the single port, the SP system. Procedures there grew an incredible 91%.
In 91. Okay, where is that primarily happening?
That's mostly international right now, led by Korea. They have broader regulatory approvals there, so surgeons can use SP for more types of general surgery than in the US currently. But that near doubling shows massive demand for that single incision approach.
Got it. Now, we can't talk growth without talking utilization. How much are these machines actually being used?
Right, utilization is key, and the trend is good. Globally, Da Vinci multiport system utilization was up 4%. In the US, it was up 2%.
Okay, what's driving that 2% in the U.S.? Just the overall procedure growth.
That's part of it, definitely reflects the strong Q3 volume. But there's another factor. The mix is shifting towards the new Da Vinci 5 system, and the DV5 was specifically designed to be more efficient, faster setup, quicker turnaround.
Ah, so as more DV5s get installed, the average utilization naturally creeps up because those machines just do more procedures per day.
Exactly. The new system is pulling the average up.
But looking globally, there's still a big gap between U.S. and international utilization, right?
Huge gap. OUS average utilization is still roughly 20% lower than in the US. Think about that, they could potentially grow international procedures by 20% without placing a single new machine, just by getting utilization up to US levels.
That's a massive runway.
Massive. And we're seeing signs it's happening. OUS utilization growth actually accelerated in Q3, up 8% compared to 6% earlier in the year. That suggests in places where capital is tight, they're really pushing to get the absolute maximum out of the systems they already have. It points to a lot of unmet demand.
Okay, let's zoom in on the Da Vinci 5 itself. It really feels like the engine driving a lot of this change. Placements were strong, 427 total Da Vinci systems in Q3, up 13% year over year. And the DV5 was a big part of that.
A very big part. 240 of those 427 placements were the new DV5. The adoption speed is impressive. They now have 929 DV5 systems installed globally.
And it's not just one-off placements, right? Hospitals are making bigger commitments.
Yeah, that's a key point. They mentioned 21 hospitals that have 3 or more systems have already completely standardized their entire robotic fleet just to the DV5.
Standardization. Why is that such a big deal, especially for the large hospital networks, the IDNs?
For a big network, standardization is gold. It means simpler training for staff, easier maintenance, streamlined inventory for all the instruments, and surgeons can move between hospitals in the network and use the exact same interface. It cuts down complexity enormously.
And the big players are buying in.
Seems so. They said 18 of the top 20 largest U.S. hospital systems already have at least one DV5. That shows these key decision makers see the value early on. They see it as an efficiency tool for their whole surgical operation, not just a fancier robot.
And the data is backing up that efficiency claim. You mentioned DV5 utilization is higher?
Correct. It's already outpacing the prior generation, the Xi system. They did about 67,000 procedures on DV5 systems in Q3. That's up from 50,000 in Q2. Doing that many procedures on a relatively small new installed base shows those machines are working hard, high throughput.
Can you give us a specific example of how it streamlines things in the operating room?
Sure, the integrated insufflation is a great one. Pumping gas into the abdomen to create space. That used to need a separate machine, often managed by another person. The DV5 builds that right in. And the data shows nearly 90% of DV5 procedures in Q3 use this integrated feature. That means faster setup time, less equipment clutter, maybe even needing one less person managing that aspect. It all adds up to quicker turnaround between cases, better OR economics.
Beyond workflow, the big draw has to be the new tech, like force sensing.
Absolutely. Force sensing is a game changer. For decades, robotic surgeons lost that sense of touch. DV5 brings it back, measuring force right at the instrument tip. Combine that with something like 10,000 times more computing power.
10,000 times.
Yeah. It enables things like better surgeon autonomy features, the potential for telepresence down the road, and these new digital tools integrated right into the console. That really appeals to surgeons wanting more control, more precision.
And they got some important software updates cleared by the FDA in Q3 too, right? What do those enable?
Yeah, that 510(k) clearance was important. Logistically, it included Network Central Configuration Management. That means the company can push out software updates, patches, even new features remotely across a hospital's entire DV5 fleet. No need for a technician visit for every single machine. Huge time and cost saver for the hospital.
Okay, that's operational. What about clinical features?
Clinically, 2 big ones. First, the force gauge. It gives the surgeon a visual display, like a color bar right on their screen, showing how much force they're applying. Real-time feedback.
So they can see if they're pushing too hard.
Exactly. And second, focus mode. This lets the surgeon replay video clips of earlier steps in the surgery or look at 3D models right there in the console without looking away. It helps with decision making and just understanding the anatomy better during the procedure.
What about getting DV5 outside the US? How's that going?
It's early days, but starting. They placed the first 9 systems internationally in Q3 in places like Japan and Europe after getting regulatory clearances there.
And the initial reaction?
Positive from what they said, but they also acknowledged that international markets tend to be a bit more cost sensitive than the US. So while the efficiency gains appeal everywhere, the adoption curve internationally might depend more heavily on showing clear clinical outcome benefits before everyone rushes to upgrade the capital.
Okay, this leads us nicely into maybe the biggest strategic shift we're seeing. How they're handling the older systems now that DV5 is here. It's created this massive wave of trade-ins.
It really has. The numbers are striking: 141 trade-in deals in Q3. Just think, a year ago, that number was only 38.
Wow, that's a huge jump. What's driving hospitals to trade in so quickly?
It seems U.S. customers, in particular, are seeing the DV5's potential higher utilization, the integrated features we talked about, and they're actively choosing to shift their budget towards upgrading to get those benefits rather than sticking with older tech.
But the really clever part isn't just taking the old ones back, it's what they plan to do with them.
Exactly. They're planning to take those Xi systems they get back, refurbish them, certify them, and then offer them as part of their official product lineup.
A mid-tier option, basically.
Precisely. It's smart market segmentation. It gives them a high-quality, reliable robotic system, but at a lower price point than the brand new DV5. And that opens doors in 2 really important areas: cost-sensitive countries internationally and domestically, places like ambulatory surgery centers, or ASCs.
And are we seeing any proof that this refurbished strategy is working yet?
Early days, but yes. They mentioned they've already sold 20 of these refurbished Xi systems. It's not a huge number yet, but it validates that there's real demand for that mid-tier option. It gives their sales teams something to offer customers who need top-notch robotics, but maybe can't quite swing the capital for the absolute latest model.
It's not just the company selling refurbished systems either, right? Hospitals are kind of managing their own internal fleets too.
That's the other dynamic. A big hospital system buys the new DV5 for its main operating rooms. But instead of just getting rid of their perfectly good older Xi system,
They move it.
yeah, they redeploy it themselves to another site within their network, maybe an ASC they own, or a smaller community hospital affiliate.
And that works smoothly because the systems are designed to be pretty similar.
Exactly. The user interface, how surgeons operate it, it's very consistent between the Xi and the DV5. So surgeons and staff can move between sites without needing a ton of retraining. Plus, most of the instruments and accessories are interchangeable between the 2 systems.
So inventory management is much simpler for the hospital network.
Hugely simpler. It makes that internal redeployment really attractive from a cost and logistics standpoint.
Okay, but focusing specifically on the US ASC market, what systems are mostly there now and what's holding back faster growth of robotics in that setting?
Right now, ASCs mostly have either the older X systems or they might be leasing a Xi, generally options with a lower upfront cost. And procedure growth in ASCs is happening. It's adding to the overall US numbers.
But there are still hurdles.
Yeah, and it's not really technical stuff like, can they sterilize the instruments properly? Management says that's not the main bottleneck. The real constraints are financial.
Okay, break that down. Capital cost is one, which refurbished helps with.
Right. The refurbished Xi helps address the upfront cost. But the bigger issue, the systemic one, is reimbursement.
How much they get paid for the procedure.
Exactly. For the same robotic procedure, an ASC typically gets paid only a fraction of what a hospital outpatient department, or HOPD, gets paid by Medicare or insurance companies.
So even if the robot itself is cheaper, there's less financial incentive to do the procedure in the ASC.
Precisely. It creates this powerful disincentive for hospitals to shift cases, especially complex, higher-cost ones, out of the better reimbursed hospital setting into the ASC, even if a refurbished robot makes the capital affordable. That reimbursement gap is the biggest barrier to really unlocking massive robotic volume in ASCs right now. #tag IV. Clinical validation and specialized platforms.
All right, let's shift to how these technologies are proving themselves clinically. Starting with that force feedback on the Da Vinci 5. That feels like a major step forward, getting that sense of touch back.
It is. But for hospitals and surgeons to really buy in, they need proof it actually makes surgery better, not just, cooler for the surgeon.
Mhm.
And we got some important early data on that from a study at Ohio State University.
Okay, but what did that study look at?
It was led by Dr. Peter Nortz, looking at over 400 common chest surgeries, thoracic procedures, done with the DV5 using force feedback.
And what did they find about how much force was used?
Really interesting results. They saw that the average force applied by the instrument tips went down as the surgeon increased the sensitivity setting for the feedback. And importantly, when the feedback setting was on medium or high, the peak forces, those sudden bursts of pressure, were reduced significantly by about 20%.
Okay, so the tech is actually helping surgeons be gentler.
Objectively gentler, yes. That seems to be the conclusion. It validates the company's idea. Now, the next crucial step is connecting that gentleness to actual patient benefits.
Right. The so what for the patient. How do they plan to show that?
They need to show, for example, that using less force during a prostatectomy leads to better functional outcomes afterwards, things patients really care about. Or that in bowel surgery, gentler handling leads to faster recovery of gut function, maybe shorter hospital stays. The data shows the force reduction. Now they need to show the link to improved outcomes.
Makes sense. Okay, let's look at the specialized platforms again. Ion for lung diagnosis, 52% procedure growth. What's making it take off?
Ion's hitting a sweet spot for diagnosing early-stage lung cancer. It can reach those small spots deep in the lung that are really hard to get to with older methods. And its success is backed by strong clinical data, like a big randomized trial from Zurich.
Ah, yes, I remember seeing that. The results were pretty dramatic.
They were incredible. The study compared Ion used with a mobile CT scanner versus traditional bronchoscopy. Ion got a diagnosis in 84.6% of cases, the traditional method, only 23.1%.
Wow, that's a difference of over 60 percentage points in diagnostic yield.
Exactly. For a patient, that's a much, much higher chance of getting an accurate diagnosis early when lung cancer is most treatable. It's becoming a key tool for lung cancer screening programs, and apparently it's effective even for doctors without years of specialized training.
And they're still improving it. Software updates.
Yeah, they just released new software using AI to help plan the navigation path through the airways more precisely. And they've integrated another imaging technique called tomosynthesis, which gives more options if a hospital doesn't have the specific type of CT scanner, making Ion more flexible.
Got it. And the other fast grower, the single port SP platform, 91% growth, mostly international still.
That's right. SP is designed for surgeries needing just one small incision, often complex stuff in the head and neck, chest, or urology. Korea is leading the charge because they got broader approvals earlier, letting surgeons use it for more things sooner.
But we are starting to see some movement in the U.S.
Yes, definitely. They mentioned the first uses of a new SP stapler tool here in the U.S. for colorectal and thoracic procedures. That's important because staplers are critical for a lot of surgeries.
And regulatory filings are happening for broader U.S. use.
Correct. They've submitted applications to the FDA for using SP in procedures like nipple-sparing mastectomy and other types of general surgery. They're clearly paving the way to expand its use in the U.S., hoping to replicate the kind of success they've seen in Korea. That 91% growth could get a big domestic boost if those approvals come through. Hashtag ZV, global market headwinds, and future opportunities.
Okay, despite all this positive momentum, it's not all smooth sailing. There are definitely some headwinds out there. Let's start domestically with the whole GLP-1 weight loss drug situation.
Yeah, the GLP-1 impact is definitely still being felt. It's causing a consistent drag on the number of bariatric or weight loss surgeries being done domestically. Those procedures are declining in the high single digits right now.
Now, you mentioned bariatrics is a small part of their overall business.
It is less than 3% of total Da Vinci procedures, but the decline is steady. Basically, some patients who might have gotten surgery are now achieving significant weight loss with these drugs instead.
And it's hard to predict when that trend will level off.
Apparently very hard. Surgeons themselves are telling the company they can't really predict the bottom. It's complicated. You have people stopping the drugs because of costs or side effects, potentially needing surgery later, while others are avoiding surgery altogether. It's a market influx, and they expect that decline to continue for a while longer.
Okay. What about challenges outside the U.S.?
Internationally, it's more about economics and competition. China remains tough, it's competitive, the government buying process, the tenders are slow, and there's pressure on pricing for both the machines and the instruments.
Price pressure across the board there.
Yeah, And then in big developed markets like Japan and the UK, they're seeing government budget constraints impacting how quickly hospitals can buy new capital equipment. So even though growth is strong elsewhere, like Brazil or the Middle East, some of the major economies are a bit sluggish on the capital side.
Got it. Let's pivot from the challenges to the future opportunities,
Mhm.
especially around the digital side of the new DV5. You mentioned that massive increase in computing power.
Hmm.
What does that unlock long term?
This is where things get really interesting, moving beyond just robotics into data. The DV5 isn't just a machine, it's designed as a powerful data hub. It can collect incredible amounts of information, the video feeds from the surgery, data on exactly how the instruments are moving, the force being applied.
And connect that to patient records.
Exactly. Integrate it with the EMR data. They even have specific new hub hardware designed just to capture and process all that high-definition video and movement data.
So you collect all this data, then what? AI comes in?
That's the plan. Use AI and machine learning to analyze all that data, look for patterns, identify best practices, maybe even spot when a surgeon is deviating from an optimal path. The ultimate vision is what they call augmented dexterity or intraoperative guidance.
Like a co-pilot for the surgeon.
Kind of, yeah. The system uses insights from potentially millions of past procedures to provide real-time, subtle guidance or alerts to the surgeon during the operation.
And this all ties back to that quintuple aim concept in healthcare. Remind us what that is?
Right, the quintuple aim is the goal. Better patient outcomes, better patient experience, better staff experience, reducing burnout, lower overall costs, and increased access to care. 5 things.
Yep.
The idea is that these digital tools, enabled by the DV5's data capabilities, will help hospitals hit all 5 targets. AI guidance could reduce complications, that's better outcomes and lower cost. Smoother workflow from integrated features helps staff experience and lowers cost too. It's all connected.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And looking ahead, where are they focusing R&D for entirely new applications?
They're sticking to their knitting in a way, applying their core strengths like precision control, advanced imaging, complex instruments, and AI to areas where there's still a big unmet need. The main area they highlighted specifically was cardiac surgery.
Cardiac. Haven't minimally invasive techniques taken over a lot of that?
A lot of the routine stuff, yes. But there's still a group of patients needing complex heart surgery. The thinking is that the DV5's very fine motion control and imaging, combined with new specialized instruments they're developing, could offer a real advantage for those specific complex cardiac cases that still require surgery. #tag a 6-tag Xis. Updated 2025 financial guidance and strategic shifts.
Okay, so wrapping up with the financials and strategy updates.
Yeah.
Given how strong Q3 was, they raised their guidance for the full year 2025, right? Starting with procedure growth.
They did. Shows confidence. They bumped up the forecast for Da Vinci procedure growth for the year to a range of 17% to 17.5%.
Up from 15.5% to 17% before.
Right. So even with that bariatric headwind, the momentum from DV5 adoption and international use is strong enough for them to raise the overall target.
They also raised the gross margin forecast. What's helping profitability?
Pro forma gross margin is now expected to be between 67% and 67.5%, up from 66% to 67%. 3 main things driving that. First, just better leverage as volumes go up. Those fixed manufacturing costs get spread thinner. Second, they're seeing results from their own efforts to cut costs in manufacturing and supply chain.
And third,
A slightly lower impact from tariffs than they previously expected. Now they figure it's about a 70 basis point hit, give or take 10 basis points. So higher volume, better internal efficiency, and a little less external pressure all help the margin outlook.
but they're still spending money to support the growth. Operating expenses.
Oh yeah, you have to invest. They estimate pro forma operating expense growth will be in the 11% to 13% range. That covers building new facilities they need, plus investing in the commercial teams pushing DV5, engineering R&D, and manufacturing capacity to keep up with demand, especially for instruments.
Makes sense. Now, one big strategic move they announced is going direct in parts of Europe.
Yeah, this is significant for 2026. They plan to convert Italy, Spain, and Portugal from using distributors to having their own direct sales and service operations there. It's planned for the first half of 2026.
Is that a big undertaking?
It is. Involves transferring around 250 employees from the distributors onto their own payroll, but it gives them direct control over the customer relationship, training, service, everything in those important markets.
And the financial impact of doing that.
They expect it to be slightly accretive to earnings per share. Basically, by cutting out the middleman, the distributor, they get to keep that margin for themselves. It suggests they feel those markets are mature enough now to support a direct presence profitably.
And finally, they still have a ton of cash even after buying back stock.
Absolutely. Ended the quarter with $8.4 billion in cash and investments, and that's after spending $1.9 billion to buy back about 4 million shares during Q3. Strong balance sheet, strong signal of confidence from management. Hashtag outro.
So pulling it all together, the growth, the D5 impact, this clever fleet management strategy, the clinical data coming through, what's the big picture story here?
The story is really about successful execution on multiple fronts. They're using their massive existing footprint as a springboard into becoming more of a data and efficiency partner for hospitals. The DB5 isn't just a better robot, it's the hardware that enables this whole digital, data-driven approach.
And it all points back to that quintuple aim.
Exactly. Everything they're doing, the tech, the strategy, seems laser-focused on helping hospitals deliver better outcomes, improve experiences for patients and staff, lower costs, and increase access. It's about enabling objectively better, gentler surgery.
Okay, here's a final thought for you, our listeners, to chew on, based on that refurbished system strategy. If they really crack the code on getting those lower-cost refurbished Xi systems into ASCs and community hospitals, effectively tackling that capital cost barrier, just how fast could robotics start to penetrate that huge chunk, maybe 80% of simpler, benign surgeries that are still done open or basic laparoscopy today?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? If they can successfully offer solutions across the whole spectrum, the top-tier DV5 for complex cases in big hospitals, and the reliable refurbished Xi for routine procedures in ASCs or smaller settings, that portfolio approach could fundamentally accelerate the shift towards robotics as the standard of care globally, maybe much faster than anyone expects.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Quarterly Call. For more episodes, please remember to rate and follow our show. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.